Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
During the last few sessions, few months, we have been trying together to explore some of the elements of the relationship between God and humanity. This is, of course, a subject that can go for many years and never would be exhausted. But nevertheless, because there is, on the one hand, such a degree of confusion in the world about God and about relationship of humanity with God on the one hand, and on the other hand, because this is of very special interest to the Baha'is and the Baha'i Faith, I decided that we will look at some of the elements of this issue together. And tonight is coinciding with the week in which we are celebrating the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith, and a very special occasion for those of us who know Baha'u'llah and have become aware of his call to humanity. So if I speak with a lot of positive feelings about this occasion, you should excuse me because I feel this is a very special occasion from my personal perspective, and therefore I'm sure that you would excuse my enthusiasm about it. And what I'm going to share with you is basically what I understand, what Baha'u'llah says about relationship of humanity with God. Okay. So this is from that perspective. God's love for humanity is absolute, is ever present, and is all-encompassing. Even those who do not believe in God, nevertheless, are the recipients on an ongoing basis of love of God. Just they are not aware of it. But nevertheless, this is a reality if we accept that we have not come to this world on an accidental basis, that there is a purpose for our life and our existence, that this life has a meaning far beyond the day-to-day preoccupations that we have. And therefore, it is essential that we begin to reflect on really why we are here, what is this all about? Because on the surface, so much trouble in this world and this life, and what happens that one wonders whether it's worth it to go through it unless there is really a fundamental purpose for our existence. And from Baha'i perspective, our existence is the beginning of never-ending journey of consciousness. That we are on a process of ever expanding our understanding, our consciousness, our being, who we are, what we are. Anyway, this is a topic that we discussed during the previous discussions. But while God's love for humanity is ever present and absolute, humanity's response to love of God is very variable. Some completely reject it. Mm-hmm. Many don't understand it at all and are not aware of it. And few have some understanding of this love relationship. But overall, we human beings are not very good at recognizing love in general. We don't know what to do with love. We don't understand it, we don't recognize it, we don't put it into practice. We don't know how to receive love. So many people have so much difficulty receiving love. And when we give it, we are so stingy about it. Often, that is really the others don't receive it, or we give it in such a way that is misunderstood, not necessarily appreciated, and then it backfires. So humanity has a lot to learn about love in general, and love of each other particularly, and the love of God essentially. So with this brief review, God's love comes to humanity through his emissaries to mankind. These emissaries of God to humanity have different names. Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster. These are figures in history that have appeared in different parts of the world at different times in history. And they have come and said that they are coming from God. And they have a message from God to humanity. And they have followers, and they have established civilizations. And we see their civilizations all over the world. Practically, there is no society that doesn't have a civilization that without a spiritual foundation. All of them have it. Okay. In the Baha'i Faith, these emissaries of God are called manifestations of God. Okay. They manifest qualities of God in this world. And in these manifestations have two sides to them. On the one hand, they are like everybody else. They eat, they sleep, they go through the routines of life like everybody else does. On the other hand, they come and they bring teachings and examples of life that transformed the lives of millions throughout ages. So imagine yourself living at a time and in a place that suddenly somebody comes and says, I am coming talking to you on behalf of God. Just imagine yourself being in that situation. What do you think would happen? Okay. This was the situation in 1844, and then thereafter in Iran, then was called Persia, when a young merchant of all people in the city of Shiraz, which is city of poets and love, he came and he said that he has a message for humanity, that he has come to inform people that the era of peace, of humanity, peace that we always had wanted, is approaching. And that a manifestation of God would come soon to bring a new message, at the core of which is to transform the world in such a manner that we would be able to establish at last the cause of peace. That was his message. And enormous chaos took place in Iran at that time, in Persia. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people accepted his message. And they were slaughtered by the thousands. Altogether, in a span of few years, some 20,000 of the followers of this young person who had the title the Bab, the Gate, were killed. Simultaneous with that time, another person was living in Persia. He came from a noble family. His father was a grand vizier in the court of the Shah, and they had a high level of living and a very comfortable life. And he had been born 2 years earlier than the Bab. And he was very well known as a person of unusual capacities. There are a lot of stories about his life. I'm not going to go into those, because we want to focus not on the human side of Baha'u'llah, but on the message, on the spiritual message that he brought to humanity. The human side is all recorded in the history, and one can go and read it. But reflecting on the spiritual message is something more immediate in my mind, is more essential. And this individual, who later was called Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, a title that the Bab gave him, this person, as soon as heard the message of the Bab, he became his follower. And then later, in the attacks that began to happen against the followers of the Bab, he was arrested and he was put in the most awful prison in the capital of Persia, Tehran, called Siyah-Chal, the Black Pit. The account of it is just unbelievable, the suffering and everything that happened in that prison. But it was very interesting because Black Pit at that time was the darkest spot on the earth. It was a prison, underground prison, that had no windows. The only window, the only thing that it had was the entrance where you arrive, and then it was total darkness. Some 150 people were in this prison. They barely had anything to sleep, anywhere to sleep, or circumstances were unbelievable. And Baha'u'llah was put in this prison. And while he was there, he said that he began to reflect of what could be done and should be done to improve the conditions of humanity so that so much injustice would not occur. That was his preoccupation. The world, Persia at that time, was one of the most corrupt societies on earth. The level of prejudice was unbelievable. The majority of Persians are Muslims, they are Shia Muslims. They considered the followers of all other religions as being unclean and ungodly. Jews and Christians and Zoroastrians were not allowed to walk in the streets on rainy days without putting a band around their arms to identify themselves as non-Muslims, so that the Muslim wouldn't touch them and become unclean. The situation was unbelievable. And it was in that setting that Baha'u'llah began to reflect on how and what is needed to correct the conditions of humanity. And it was in that setting that he had these first revelations that this is indeed his mission in this life. And from there, many things happened. Before I go further about discussing of what happened, I tell you a little bit story. Many years ago, I was in Jamaica and for a vacation and went to meet with the Baha'is in Jamaica. And a Jamaican painter came to me and he said, I have become Baha'i. And I have been so revolutionized my life and my art. And I want to show you my first painting after I became Baha'i. So he brought this big canvas. And the canvas was totally black. Okay, totally black, with one point of light in the middle of it. He said, this is the way I envision the new revelation of God to humanity. That the world of humanity is in a state of darkness, a state of prejudice, inequality between men and women, between black and white, between different races, between different religions. There is war everywhere. There is prejudice everywhere, extremes of wealth and poverty. Darkness has engulfed the whole world. And he said, when I began to read the teachings of Baha'u'llah, I felt that it was like this spot of light in the total darkness. Now imagine yourself in a plane, totally dark, and one light there. Okay, that becomes your point of orientation. You begin to go towards it, right? Because there is nothing else you see. You see the light. And in many ways, the revelation, the new revelation from God to humanity comes when the world is in profound difficulty and trouble. And a new level of spiritual insight is needed to change the conditions of the world. Because human life, let me put it differently, because we human beings live our lives through our thoughts, our feelings and sentiments, and our actions. These are the things that we help us to decide what we want to do, how we want to do it, and then go ahead and put it into action. Every human being has that. All peoples of the world have thoughts, feelings, and the capacity to make decisions. These are the fundamental characteristics of human psyche, human soul. Okay? These are our powers. Now, these powers that we have, we can use them in a positive way or in a negative way. And when Baha'u'llah was in prison, something was happening in the West. And what was happening was in the West was that people were awakening, and we talked about it last time. People were awakening and suddenly saying, I am not going to follow a religion that is full of superstition and anger and hatred. I'm not going to follow the leaders who are authoritarian and causing problems. We are not going any longer to be servants to dictators. We are going to live our lives according to science and according to logic. And we are going to make our lives better through scientific development and logical development. That's the time that the young humanity, the adolescent humanity, began to take the affairs of its life in their own hand. And they said, the way that we have used religion in the past has been negative. And now we have science, and now we know what to do. And we are going to live in a different way of life. But now the history 200 years later shows that we have made dramatic mistakes. Because look what we did with our science. We have created, on the one hand, fantastic instruments of goodness, and on the other hand, all the elements that we see how dangerously has affected humanity, First World War, Second World War, all of those things. And now they are talking about hydrogen bombs and fighting with hydrogen bombs and so on in our world. It's just unbelievable what's happening. So the whole idea of religion is to help humanity to use our human capacities of understanding and of knowledge and of love and of abilities that we have in the manner that would create something different out of this life. And this fundamentally was the message of Baha'u'llah. When Baha'u'llah was released from prison and was sent along with his family out of Persian Empire and was sent to what was then Ottoman Empire, and eventually was imprisoned in city of Akka, which is a part of Palestine, part of Israel now. During this whole journey, Baha'u'llah began to give certain fundamental spiritual truths to humanity. And I want to share those spiritual truths that Baha'u'llah mentioned for our reflection tonight. First, he said, there is only one God. It's not many gods. Because when people talk about, they say Christian God and Muslim God and God and Allah and different names, the Baha'u'llah said, no, there is one reality, one creator, one God. Second, he said there is only one religion. There is not many religions. All religions are one. They are just different stages of expression of reality, of spiritual reality that comes to humanity. He said religion, like science, is progressive. In the same way that we have during the years learned more and more in science and accepted new scientific realities, as we grow, religion comes to humanity also according to our ability and our understanding. And we have to realize that the fundamental spiritual realities of religion is one, but is coming to us progressively. And he said humanity is one. There is one humanity. And this oneness of humanity is expressed in diversity and different. But then he says something very, very fundamental. On the first day that he claimed his mission to the world as the new messenger of God to humanity, Baha'u'llah stated that religion and religious people under no circumstances should get involved in violence. That it is forbidden for Baha'is to be violent at any time, under any circumstances. The defense of your immediate family and so forth is something else. But the whole issue is that the things that has happened in human history, in religions, the wars between religions, the crusades, the jihads, all of these things are totally, he said, against the fundamental teachings of religion. That the fundamental purpose of religion is to create peace. And the fundamental purpose of human beings is to learn how to become peaceful themselves, inside themselves, and become peacemakers with other people. This is the fundamental purpose. And if religion, he said, cannot create that, it's better to be without it, rather than to have a religion that is the cause. of violence. And he said that religion is universal, is all inclusive. You cannot say this and that and that. They are all one. And therefore, he said we have to live with all religions in a process that is calling us to live a new way of life. We have become very distant from our own inner life. The life that we have created is difficult, is very busy, is very demanding. We spend most of our lives to meet our physical needs for food, for shelter, for comfort, physical comfort, for just being alive and staying alive and safe. We also focus on certain aspects of our psychological needs. Psychological needs of people are related to the fact that we want to have relationships that are fair, of equality, justice, freedom. We try to do those things, but we have done a very bad job with it. Look at around the world and to see how can you find anywhere in the world that justice is really happening? Can you find anywhere in the world that true freedom that exists, even agreeing what freedom is very difficult. Okay? We haven't, you see, there are three categories of human needs. Survival needs, which are obvious, and then relationship needs, association needs. And association needs refer to equality, freedom, justice, and so forth. And this is the area that humanity is now focusing on. And we have not done, we have tried during the last few 100 years, 200 years, to see what we can do with these issues. And we have developed several practices. One practice was communism. Communism was to create certain kind of equality among masses of people. Where we did it, we tried it, and we really created a chaos in the lives of millions of people. The other prominent one was democracy, Western style of democracy and capitalism, which is now has come under tremendous pressure and is showing its problems. What we are experiencing are crises of capitalism and Western style of multi-party adversarial democracy. This has created, is showing that is not efficient and sufficient for needs of humanity at this time. The third one is fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, that have taken over and the tribe and is, Christian fundamentalism, Islamic fundamentalism, Hindu fundamentalism, Buddhist fundamentalism in different parts of the world are doing their damages around the world. These are different methods and different ways that we have tried to administer the affairs of humanity. Baha'u'llah said, none of these are going to work. There is a new way of administering human affairs that we have to begin to learn and to put into practice. And he said that in order to do that, first of all, we as individuals have to learn to reestablish our relationship with God and begin to be able to receive the love of God. And love of God is the message of God to humanity. You see, love is, at one level, is very painful. Love is painful because at the core of the process of love is creating conditions in which we can grow and mature and evolve and develop. And growth is painful. Growth requires self-discipline. Growth requires self-knowledge. Growth requires awareness that we are not perfect. Growth requires willingness to work on our imperfections. Growth is painful. And the more we try to go deeper into our being and as an individual and become more aware of everything about ourselves, the more demanding the process becomes. And it's here that the love of God comes. You see, the teachings of religion, a true religion, are not punishments, are not rules to control. They are actually the expressions of dynamics of love that allows humanity to grow. So Baha'u'llah said that in order for us to be recipients of love of God, first of all, we have to have a pure heart. A heart free from prejudice, from envy, from malice, from anger, from hatred, from dislike, from suspicion. Pure heart. It's a very difficult one. Second, then these are all at the same level, but I have to put it in some order. That in our search for understanding spiritual reality, we have to become independent. Until now, in human history, people searching for spiritual insight have been dependent on on religious leaders, the clergy, the popes, the mullahs, the ayatollahs, the Kohens, rabbis. We have been dependent on somebody else to tell us what spiritual reality is and how spiritual reality could be to put into practice. Baha'u'llah abolished the institution of priesthood There are no priests in the Baha'i Faith, no clergy in the Baha'i Faith, no ayatollahs, no nothing. Nobody has the spiritual authority over anyone. This is the age of maturity of humanity. He said, we have to learn to independently investigate the spiritual truth. And whatever we decide and we investigate independently, that becomes the guiding lights for the way we live our lives. Nobody is going to tell us. We have to accept that responsibility. He said we have to learn to be just as individuals. He said the most beloved of all things in my sight is justice. And the way he described justice is very interesting. He said, through it, thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Now this is very, very important in the age of the media that we live. We are so affected, bombarded, affected by the media. We get all our ideas, our knowledge through polls and through internet and Facebook and fake news and just you name it. That's what and Baha'u'llah said that if you want to be a just person, you have to know, investigate the truth and know by yourself, not listening to others. That's in this connection, he said, backbiting is totally forbidden. Another word, sitting and talking behind other people's back is totally forbidden. He equated character assassination with murder. He said both of them are forbidden. To fault finding, character assassination, the things that are major activities of our time now, he said, these totally forbidden. If we want to live truly spiritual life and become recipients of love and givers of love, if we want to become lovers in true sense of the word, we have to have pure heart. We have to search for truth ourselves. We have to be just. And he said, and we have to be unifiers. Unity, he said, is the fundamental law of existence. Everything that exists is the outcome of law of unity. Just think of yourselves. How did we come to this world? Through unity of the sperm and the ovum. How we stay alive? Through the unity of different organs of our body. How our families continue to survive? Through the unity of the members of the family. Society, the world, everything. The law of unity is the fundamental law of existence. And we have to learn how to become unifiers. How to create unity within ourselves and between ourselves. So here you are. Baha'u'llah is calling upon us to have a pure heart, to be just, to search for truth, to be unifiers. And there's more, but that's sufficient, okay? If you begin to begin to think and act along those parameters, then you're a true lover. You are truly loving individual. You're compassionate, you're giving, you're kind, you're enlightened. Because there is nothing worse than unenlightened love. Love has to be enlightened. It has to be also universal. Limited love is dangerous. Limited love is dangerous. When you ask people why you are becoming a terrorist, they say for love of Allah, or for love of Islam, or for love of my ideals. I had interviewed many soldiers who have been at war and say, why did you engage in these activities? For love of my family, for love of my nation, for love of my race. Limited love is dangerous. Love by its very nature, in its pure form, has to be all-encompassing and universal. And so, Baha'u'llah calls upon us to become universal, to have our vision to be worth embracing, to embrace everyone, and not to exclude anyone. There is another thing here that is a very challenging. He said that the messenger of God that comes to humanity, he's very human being, can become a veil for people to see the reality of his message. Because the human side of the manifestation is similar to everybody else. And people begin to focus on that and miss focusing on what is being said, It's like for us try to understand Mozart by focusing on his way of life rather than his music, I don't know how many of you saw a series was Genius about Einstein. And Einstein's life was a mess. It was a total mess. His marriage life and his love life, there was a total mess. So if you want to understand Einstein by focusing on his personal life, you would miss it. That's the reason that when people talk about Muhammad as the prophet of Islam, or Jesus, as and focus on those aspects of their lives, they miss the essential message that is coming from them, and so forth. So that's very essential. But the other thing is, that not everybody allows himself or herself to become the recipient of the love of God, of message of the manifestation. Baha'u'llah, in one of his writings, identifies 4 groups of people that are most responsive to the call, to the spiritual call of the age, okay, which is in this case the message of Baha'u'llah. He says that, first of all, he puts it in the context of eternity. He says that we have come to this world in order to embark on a journey of eternity. And that our reality doesn't become non-existent after we die. And that our purpose in this life are twofold. On the one hand, to live the best way we can in this world, and to have a benefit of all the good things that exist in this life, and create a civilization that is just and progressive and peaceful and harmonious and beautiful. So that's our purpose. And at the same time, while we do that, to develop those qualities and capacities that would allow our reality, our soul, to continue its existence, our consciousness continue its existence. So this is all about a journey of eternity. And Baha'u'llah says that there are 4 groups of people that he's calling upon specifically in that one message that he was sending. One was the sincere ones, people who are sincere. Now that's very interesting. Reflect on whether you consider yourself a sincere person or not. Reflect on experiences that you have with many people that are not sincere. I'm sure we have encountered people that they say one thing and they do another thing. The sincerity is so fundamental. When you are sincere, it's a quality that is a very, not very common. It's very difficult to find. We all want to be sincere. We want to be authentic. We want to be real. That, sincere to ourselves and to others. The second group that he mentions are those who believe in unity. In unity, to become unifiers, to create unity. Because many people don't believe in unity, believe in us versus them. Majority of people thinking in dichotomous way. Dichotomous thinking is the process that is very, very common in this world. Man and woman, science and religion, citizens and foreigners, good and bad, black and white. Just think about it. Us and them. Okay?
Rich and poor.
This is rich and poor, of course, that's, but that's not dichotomous, that's the reality. Dichotomous thinking is the most common thinking in the world. Majority of people think in dichotomies. Okay? And here Baha'u'llah says, in order to be the recipient of love of God, in order to be a spiritual being, we need to learn the ways of unity and to get away from dichotomous thinking. That's a very, very difficult thing. The third group that he says are recipients of the message of new religion, of love of God, are those who are detached, or put it differently, those who are not very attached to the vain glory of this world. Because if we are attached to name and fame and position and power and money, we cannot be attached to something else. Love is the process of attachment. So whatever you attach yourself to, that becomes your object of love. And therefore, if you want to love God, you have to see how you can then make sure that your primary object of your love is not your power or your position or money that you're making. Those are all good. But if they become the sole object of your attachment, then you cannot be attached to anything else. So when we talk about detachment, it doesn't mean to become poor and without having anything and live a lousy life and that kind of thing. Detachment means priorities. Put it differently, think about whether you are willing to sacrifice the very important things in your life for the most important. What is the most important? And what is very important and what is less important? And this order becomes the mechanism and dynamics of detachment and attachment. And the fourth group is the people who are sincere. Sincerity. Because, again, this is related to the issue of, no, not sincerity. Sincerity I mentioned. The fourth one is lovers. Okay. Lovers, whether you're lovers. Sincere, unifiers, believing in unity, being detached, being a lover. Okay? Those are the four categories of people that find it easier to begin to reflect on a spiritual life. Now, Baha'u'llah has come and says this is a new era in the spiritual rejuvenation of mankind. Very few people know him. Only few million people around the world know him. And these few million people have created a community around the globe that is worthy of study, of a look. And it's very difficult to convey the essence of it to you. I have found it very difficult because it is so removed from day-to-day life preoccupations that we have in our world. But anyway, let's see what you're thinking.
So it's okay for a person, like my neighbor, for example, he's sincere, he's detached, he's a unifier.
Love it.
Oh, he's just his family is just the greatest. Do people have to call themselves do they have to be a member of some religion? Can they just be all that and help the world?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, religion in the way that is used today, you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Okay? No. Baha'u'llah, the Baha'i Faith is not like any religion. It's not really a religion in the way that people understand it. It is a spiritual way of life,
Yeah.
commensurate with the conditions of modern world. It doesn't have most of the components of religions, other religions. It doesn't have rituals, it doesn't have clergy, it doesn't have any of the structures of the other religions. But it has a fundamental relationship with all other religions in a sense that it believes that there is a creator, that there is a purpose for life, and there is life after this life. Those are the fundamental issues. And then within that framework, the teachings of Baha'u'llah, of how to live that life in this world, becomes so obviously clear when one studies it, that it is so appropriate for the time we are living right now. You see, that's the process. So you're right. Many people say, well, I can't live all of those things. But that's one thing to live a personal life. Is another thing to create a new civilization in which we actually all begin to go into that direction, you see. Right now, there are a lot of individuals that are really marvelous people. Mm-hmm. But collectively, we are making mess of the whole life. Mm-hmm. You see, something is happening that, when you look at the Americans or Canadians or anywhere, majority, you look at the before Second World War or First World War in Germany, during the, when Hitler came, majority of people in Germany were God-fearing Christians. Mm-hmm. Individually, they were marvelous people. Collectively, they did what they did. So there's something, power has to come to allow humanity to be affected positively, both individually and collectively, and create a new way of life. And that's what the revelation does. Okay.
Well, you just answered my question.
What?
Sort of. The part about having a label still bothers me. I really appreciated your question because I asked Dr. Danesh that a long time ago. But this answer you gave tonight was very satisfying. However, the business of having a label is still troublesome to me.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
I am a Muslim, I am a Christian,
yeah,
I am
it's just nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. Because the labels separate us.
We have separated ourselves because we have misunderstood what it was, and we have divided ourselves, and because we are not basically oriented towards unity. We are oriented the other way, us and them, dichotomy.
Yes.
Then it's very easy to label and separate.
Yes.
And by labeling, we think that now we have an identity.
Right.
You see, because we call ourselves, we are the purple ones, So, it's just, you're right.
Thank you.
So, if, for example, if I want to become part of the movement that Baha'u'llah started, do I need to label myself as a Baha'i? Like, as soon as you say I'm Baha'i, then...
Well, that's the issue of participating in the creating a community.
Right.
You see, by you can be a Baha'i and nobody even needs to know about it, okay? But if you want now together, let's say, let's create a new world. You know, let's do it. You know, let's do it together. Then something has to happen. You know, but you don't need to. You know. You don't need.
Oh, I wanted to know. You at the beginning of the evening, you referred again to messengers.
Yeah.
Or manifestations.
Manifestations. Yeah.
Through Moses, through Jesus,
that's right.
And each one of these individuals or humans received their message or revelation in the form of, I don't know.
We don't know how. Yeah.
Do you know, like Muhammad claimed that he saw the angel.
Gabriel.
Jesus claimed that he was the son of God.
That's right.
Which is a pretty big claim. Moses saw the burning bush. I don't know, or he got the 10 Commandments from God on Mount Sinai. What does Baha'u'llah say? Do you have a dream, an angel, or what?
He was
what
a
did
man
he
like
say?
us on the couch.
Do you know what he said?
Well, Baha'u'llah said that he became aware of realities that were beyond anything he had. He didn't go to school, okay?
Or like Buddha, he meditated.
That's right. He didn't go to
reflected.
school. He didn't go to school. He wasn't educated. You know, he just learned calligraphy and poetry and a few things like that, and that was it. But Baha'u'llah said that he began to be aware of spiritual realities, and they came to him. He said, "It's not of me." He said, in his letter to Shah of Iran said, "I was asleep. I was like everyone else, and then the blessings of God came upon me and taught me what I had not known."
So thoughts came into his mind.
And he said,
God.
and here is what I have, okay? And he gave the teachings. And now, because we are in a modern era, Baha'u'llah's writings are there, you know, about 100 volumes. Okay, so small and big, you know, about 100 of them. So they are all there, and when one reads it, it's amazing. It's amazing, and he says, you know, don't blame me. It's, it's just, I was given these to give to you. Okay. This is a mysterious process.
It's the way artists, musicians
feel
inspired. How did Mozart at the age of 4 sit down and play?
Well, Mozart said that the angel sang it to me and I wrote it down.
Yeah.
You know, okay.
Yeah.
So the connection with the unknown, with the mystery, with the realm of mystery, is a very mysterious process. And we know, the only thing that we know is that we don't know. Okay, that's really the highest extent of our knowledge. Okay, look at what's happening with science. Every day that we discover something,
bigger question.
bigger question comes. The whole thing is mysterious. Okay, so when someone is connected with that source of mystery, above and beyond of what the rest of us are, that's not unusual. Okay, that's not unusual.
But what did you say? Would you not say, or could you deny that source is available to all of us? Is it not available to everyone?
Maybe, but obviously not.
But people aren't evolved enough spiritually to connect with that source?
Well, we don't know. Maybe
that's another thing we don't
maybe
know.
100,000 years from now, everybody would be, I don't know. But at this time, people are really pretty removed from those realities. Okay.
But you hold up someone like Baha'u'llah, who did connect to that source, and the evidence is in what his teachings and
the impact of his words on the lives of the people, the community that he's created, and so forth. Yeah.
But I have a feeling that more humans are able to connect to that source than we know.
Be my guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in our evolution, more and more of us.
Maybe I don't know. I know myself I'm not, but maybe.
Well, I think you are more than you realize.
I know, I myself I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fascinating. So this point intrigues me when you say that Baha'u'llah was born in 1817, and he was born then, but by the time he was sharing his message and saying that the time of peace is approaching, and after that the world saw so much war.
That's right. Baha'u'llah said in 1863, he said, the time has come for humanity to put aside all the war. And he said, if they don't do it, actually in one of his writings he said, I see the lamentation of the Berlin twice.
Of the Berlin?
Berlin, Germany.
Yeah, I know. He saw that.
He said, I see the lamentation of Berlin, of France. In what is his most holy book, he said, I see the lamentation of Berlin.
Did this not shake his followers' faith a little when he's proclaiming the peace is coming soon and all this war?
No. You see, proclaiming peace. Well, okay, let's put it this way. The message of God comes to humanity. To the extent that humanity responds to that message, to that degree, it becomes, because it's for us, okay? God doesn't need it. It's for us to create peace. So God comes and through his messenger and says, if you want to have peace, you should do this. And
it's conditional.
And this.
It's not a prophecy.
No. This. If you don't do it, then you get First World War, Second World War, everything else that you're getting. You see? Because the whole thing is for us to evolve. Right. It's not for God to do something, it's for us to evolve. For humanity to mature, to humanity to create. Because if everything was given to us, our life becomes meaningless.
Right.
You see, we have to achieve it. We have to become peacemakers. We have to create a better world. Otherwise, our lives become like animals, becomes aimless.
But I had this conversation with Janus just the other day. I said, what if we lived in Shangri-La and there was peace and love everywhere?
What if?
What if? Would that really serve us? There is a backwards or a perverse kind of good in all the bad in our world. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, take the example of a natural disaster, a hurricane, a flood, a tornado. It brings out the best and the worst in humanity.
Exactly.
Without it, we could never be tested.
Yeah.
Without all the suffering and pain. Not that we wish it, but the result of it is we dig deeper, we work harder, we have more opportunities to be compassionate. If nobody's suffering, how can we exercise compassion? How can we exercise these qualities?
That's true. And first of all, peace is not without problems. Okay. Peace doesn't mean absence of problem or challenge. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we are not the only living beings in this universe. conscious living beings, these universes that are around. We don't know what's going to come, in future. We create peace here. What about if those funny people start coming from other places? We don't know what's going to happen. Suddenly this is a long story.
Yeah.
May I say something?
Of course.
I was thinking, to those funny people, we are one. Like they don't think, oh, that's a First Nation, that's a... People of planet Earth, we are one.
The Martians that look at us, they say, oh yeah, this is one Earth,
One Earth.
The Martians see us as one.
The Earth, they will say.
That's right.
And another thing, if I may say, in Arabic we have two words for peace. We have salam and we have sulh.
So, yes.
Salam is serenity, but sulh is when you repair something. Islah.
Yes. Islah, yeah. So.
And sulh comes from the word, so it means that you have cows and you're repairing things. It's not salam. Salam is serenity and no movement in it.